They say life has a cruel way of revealing the truth, that sometimes the people you look down on are the very ones who could change your destiny. This is the story of Han Jin-Woo, a quiet, modest man who boarded one of his own airplanes and faced humiliation like no other. Nobody on that flight knew who he really was. To them, he was just another middle-aged passenger, someone who didn't look like he belonged in first class. But when the truth came out, it shocked them all, and it left a lesson they would never forget. Han Jin-Woo wasn't a man who liked to show off. He had built his airline empire over 4 decades, starting from a small cargo company with just one leased plane. He knew every corner of the business, the mechanics, the schedules, the stress of crew members, the joy of passengers. To him, an airline wasn't just about planes in the sky, it was about people. But over time, as his business grew, he noticed something troubling: arrogance. He saw his employees treating frequent flyers as if they were kings, while ignoring those who looked ordinary. He saw whispers, favoritism, and a culture where appearances mattered more than respect. And so, once in a while, Han Jin-Woo did something unusual. He disguised himself as an ordinary passenger, bought his own ticket, and boarded his planes like anyone else. That morning, the airport was crowded. Businessmen in sharp suits typed on laptops. Families juggled bags and children. Jin-Woo walked in quietly, dressed in a plain gray suit that had seen better days, carrying a worn leather bag. His ticket was for seat 1A, first class. The woman at the check-in counter glanced at the ticket, then at him. Her eyes narrowed. "Sir, are you sure this is correct?" she asked. Jin-Woo smiled politely. "Yes, I believe it is." The agent frowned but printed his boarding pass anyway, muttering under her breath. Already the judgment had begun. At the gate, the same story. The staff looked at him as if something was wrong. He didn't fit their picture of a first-class passenger. No expensive watch, no designer shoes, just a man with calm eyes and a simple presence. Still, he boarded quietly and made his way to his seat. First class gleamed with luxury. Plush leather seats, glasses of champagne, attendants offering warm towels. Jin-Woo placed his bag overhead, sat down, and breathed. For him, this was not about luxury. It was about observation. Minutes later, the storm began. A man entered the cabin. Tall, loud, dripping with arrogance. His name was Kang Min-ho, a wealthy businessman who flew often. He was known among the crew for demanding special treatment, for speaking to staff as if they were servants. Behind him walked his daughter, Soo-jin, dressed in designer clothes, scrolling on her phone with disdain for everything around her. When Min-ho reached Jin-Woo's seat, he stopped. His face twisted in irritation. "You're in my seat," he said sharply. Jin-Woo looked up, calm as ever. "This is seat 1A. Here is my boarding pass." Min-ho's eyes narrowed. He didn't look at the ticket. He looked at the man, at his cheap tie, at his scuffed shoes, and he smirked. "Listen, I always sit here. I don't care what your ticket says. Move to the back." Jin-Woo remained silent for a moment. The attendants approached, nervous smiles plastered on their faces. "Mr. Kang," one said softly, "your seat is actually 2C today. This passenger is correctly seated." Kang Min-ho slammed his boarding pass on the tray table. "Do you know who I am? Do you know how many flights I've taken with this airline? I'm practically family. Put him in economy. He doesn't belong here." Soo-jin chuckled cruelly. "Dad, just look at him. He's probably never flown first class in his life. Why embarrass himself? Move him." The attendants hesitated. They knew Kang Min-ho was influential. They knew refusing him could cause trouble. And here was this other man, ordinary, quiet, with no sign of importance. Who would they choose? They turned to Jin-Woo. "Sir, perhaps it would be better if you let us reassign you to another seat. Economy is available. We can upgrade your meal, maybe give you extra miles." Jin-Woo's voice was steady. Number I bought this seat. I will stay in this seat. The tension thickened. Other passengers began whispering. Some sided with Min-ho, amused by the drama. Others looked away, unwilling to get involved. But Min-ho wasn't done. He called for the captain himself. Within minutes, the captain appeared, his uniform crisp, his expression stern. What seems to be the problem? Min-ho pounced on the chance. This man is in my seat. Move him now. He doesn't belong here. The captain checked the tickets. He saw Jin-Woo was right, but instead of defending him, he frowned. Sir, he said to Jin-Woo, perhaps you could cooperate for the sake of the flight. We can place you in economy. It will only be for this trip. The whispers grew louder. Jin-Woo felt the sting of injustice, but his face stayed calm. I paid for this seat, he said. I will not move. And then came the breaking point. Soo-jin tossed her expensive coat onto Jin-Woo's lap. If you insist on sitting here, then at least make yourself useful. Hold this. The cabin fell silent. The arrogance was unbearable. The attendants stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The captain cleared his throat, preparing to call security. Everyone believed Jin-Woo would be dragged out, humiliated beyond repair. But Jin-Woo simply lifted the coat off his lap, folded it neatly, and placed it back on Soo-jin's armrest. Then slowly, he reached into his bag. He pulled out a black leather folder. Inside was an identification card. He placed it on the table, his eyes calm but piercing. The captain leaned in. His face went pale. The attendants gasped. Kang Min-ho froze, his mouth half open. The card read, Han Jin-Woo, Chairman and Founder, Han Air Group. For a moment, silence swallowed the cabin. You could hear nothing but the hum of the engines. Then Jin-Woo spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like a blade. I came here today not as an owner, not as a chairman, just as a passenger. I wanted to see how my airline treats people, and now I have seen. He looked at the attendants. You were ready to strip a man of his rights because another shouted louder. You forgot that a ticket is not just paper, it is a promise of dignity. He turned to the captain. You were willing to sacrifice fairness for convenience. You wear those stripes not just to fly planes, but to lead with integrity. Today, you failed. Finally, he turned to Kang Min-ho and his daughter. His eyes were steady. And you believed money made you greater. You believed your privilege was more powerful than principle. But here's the truth. You will never fly my airline again. You are banned permanently. Gasps echoed across the cabin. Min-ho's face flushed red, his arrogance shattered. Soo-jin shrank into her seat, silent for the first time. Jin-Woo stood slowly, his presence filling the cabin. Never forget this, he said, his voice strong. In the air, there are no kings, no masters, no servants. We are all passengers. We are all equal. The passengers erupted into quiet applause. Some bowed their heads in shame. Others smiled, relief washing over them. The attendants lowered their eyes, trembling. The captain saluted stiffly, realizing the weight of his mistake. The flight continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Respect filled the air. The attendants served with care. Passengers treated one another with kindness. And Jin-Woo sat in his seat, not as an untouchable owner, but as a man who had reminded everyone of what mattered most. When the plane landed, the story spread like wildfire. Newspapers picked it up. Passengers told their families. Soon it became a legend. The flight of equality. And to this day, in Han Air's training manuals, every new employee hears the story of the day their own chairman sat among them, was humiliated, and taught them the lesson of a lifetime. And if you remember nothing else, remember this. Wealth can buy you a seat, but respect is what makes you human. Never forget, we are all equal.